Hi there, my name is Ameera Conrad. I'm a performer, writer, and director, and I'm also an alumnus of the UCT Drama Department, where I graduated in 2015. Since then, I've been working in the theatre industry in all kinds of fields, predominantly in new work and in working with young actors and actors in training. This video is to help you get started when you're working on your Res for Res production. I find that starting writing is always the hardest thing, and a good place to start is to find something that really inspires you, something that you feel really passionately about, and something that you could talk about for ages, and then you do exactly that. If you have a phone with a recorder, it's always good to just sit with it on and talk for about 10 minutes. Talk about this thing that inspires you. What is it that you feel about it? What pulls you towards it? What about it sets that fire going? And then you listen back to that recording and you pull out different themes and ideas that you can hone in on. Once you've done that, you just start writing something. It might not be good and it might not even make it to the final edit, but it's got to be your original thought, your original feeling about this thing. It's always good to have that first inspiration to remind you why it is that you've chosen this thing and why you're doing this. That can also help you find your own style of writing through the style of your speaking. Like, some people speak really poetically, and so your writing might be more poetic, but some people are really good at speaking really directly to the point and quite quickly, and so you might find that your writing has a bit more humor and a little bit more sort of snappy dialogue and stuff like that. You just have to let your own stuff inform what you write and also how you write. And don't feel like you have to write like Shakespeare for it to be real theatre. No. You have to write in a way that expresses you the best. You write in a way that you think tells the story the best. And that can be song or poetry or dialogue or rap, whatever. It's all about your expression and you expressing the story that you want to tell. If you don't like too much structure before you write, then you can just dive right in and figure it all out in the editing stage, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But if you do need a little bit more structure, then a good place to start is to decide on the heart of your story. What is this thing? What is at the center of it? What does everything revolve around? A good idea is for this to be part of the initial inspiration that caused you to write it. The next thing to do is maybe decide on the world of the play. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Immerse yourself in this environment mentally. And then you can figure out what kind of characters exist in this world. Who are they? What do they look like? What are their personalities? Maybe you can draw up a little bit of a personal biography or a history for them. Whatever helps you to figure out who these people are, what this place is, and why it all exists together. From there, it's easier to write stuff or even to just improvise in character out loud with your recorder on, because you know the environment, and so you'll know how the characters react to the environment and how they react to each other as well. If you need even more structure, which is completely fine, a good thing to do is to draw a little bit of a timeline so you can outline for yourself when you want your exposition to come in, when you want your rising action, when your climax comes, your falling action, and then the conclusion of your play. Different plays will have different kinds of structure, so you might have multiple climaxes and multiple small ones, and then one larger one, but it's sort of just up to you and what you need. There are a lot of different ways to go about editing, and an exercise that I like to do is to look at the play as a whole, sort of get the bigger picture, and then get rid of, but also like never fully get rid of anything. Just always keep your writing somewhere. Either keep it in a separate Word document or in like a neat little pile if you're handwriting things. But so you get rid of everything that doesn't further the story. If it isn't about the story itself, get rid of it. And if you've got some time left or a few pages left within the time limit, then you can go back to your first inspiration of the piece, that little voice note or that piece of writing, whatever it was that you created from that initial spark. And from what you've cut, find the things that are directly related to that inspiration. Everything else is just extra, and you can keep that for the director's extended cut. When you've got something that you're happy with and you're ready to submit, there are a lot of different ways that you can do this in terms of formatting. Whether you're typing it or writing it out by hand, there are a couple of standardized formatting tips that will be really beneficial and that I recommend you use. Have a cover page that contains the title of the play, the subtitle if you have one, and all the playwrights' names in the center. And at the bottom of the cover page, include whatever contact details you need for the organizers to get in touch with you. Usually an email address is enough. In the body of the play, you can generally format it however you want, but to make it easier to read, I recommend your character names all be on one side of the page, and then you indent the speech. So just write all the character names on one side, pop a little colon in there, and then leave a bit of a gap, and write all of the text that they're talking all on the other side. And usually, if you just line them up a little bit neatly and equally, it's easier to read. Any stage direction should be italicized if it's on its own, or in brackets and italicized if you're writing inside the spoken text. If you're typing it out, try to use a clear font like Times New Roman or Calibri, and if you're handwriting it, just make sure that it's legible and clear for someone who's not used to your handwriting to read. Definitely always spell check, and wherever it's necessary, if you're writing in multiple languages, include a translation below the piece of writing so that anyone who's reading it can follow along without missing any important bits. Those are my basic sort of starting off writing tips, and you're more than welcome, obviously, to use whatever you find useful to you, but also don't use the things that you don't find useful. Everybody's processes are different, everybody's style of writing is different, and that's something that should be encouraged, and by no means should you try and fit your process or your way of writing or your creative flow into my way of writing and my creative flow. It's just a couple of ideas to maybe get you started or help you out when you're stuck. Happy writing!